Okay, so today we're going to talk about voodoo dolls, right? More about how things get altered, misconstrued, misinterpreted, so on and so forth throughout the course of time. So, I was reading about voodoo dolls, right? So, we all know, or at least have heard, that at some point, right, enslaved people were not allowed to read or write, right? Or just simply didn't know how. So, obviously, in today's world, something that we would call a natural doctor, homeopathic doctor, or as Big Pharma would say, alternative medicine. That was once the norm. There were no hospitals, right? There were no doctors getting degrees. People practiced medicine throughout all cultures. As far as back as you can trace it, there were people that practiced medicine. Um, so in some of these enslaved encampment areas, there were doctors, there were medicine people, there were healers. Because of course they weren't taken to traditional doctors. They had to kind of suffer through whatever they were going through, figure it out for themselves, right? So let's say I went to the doctor at the time, doctor, and told him or her that I had a headache, right? Again, because they weren't allowed to read or write, or simply could not read or write, of course, they were not allowed to have a file. So today, you might have my chart, or your doctor may type into your chart, or even handwrite notes, right? That wasn't allowed. That wasn't common practice. So you'd go to see this doctor, this healer, this medicine person, medicine man, medicine woman, and they would make or fashion a doll after you, right? That was their original medical chart or file. So if I were to say, hey, I'm having headaches, that doctor would take a pen, needle, what have you, with your doll, that was your chart, and put a pin in the head of that doll, right? That was the way they remembered what was ailing you or what you were having trouble with. That was your medical chart. Oh, my knee's hurting. That's where they put a pin. My stomach's hurting. That's where they put a pin. So even now, I think about in today's world, when someone says put a pin in it, right? Where did that really come from, right? And so that healer, that medicine person, man, woman, would give you whatever herbal remedy they had at the time. Keep your doll with the pin in it. And then when you will see them again, they might ask, are you still suffering with these headaches? No, right? They will take the pin out of the doll's head because they don't need to remember that anymore, right? They don't need to keep that on your file because you're no longer suffering from those headaches. So maybe you have a new ailment. So it was just amazing to me how so many things can be lost through time or lost in translation. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that, today's practice of voodoo is that, right? Because we have advancements. We can make a chart. We can write down what a person's going through. We don't have to have a doll to remind us with a pen in it, right? So I'm not suggesting that current day voodoo practices are right or that I agree with them, but I can't say that I disagree, right? Um, Instead of it being looked at as witchcraft, maybe we could just see it as traditional medicine or an ancient form of healing, right? But I just thought that was interesting, and I thought I would share that with you guys because it's just about perspective, right? And even in me reading that, right? Because even written things get altered over time. Someone could come along and dispute everything that I just said, right? So that's why I said it's really about more so perspective than it is historical or factual. I wasn't there. I don't think any of you watching this were there during those, you know, early times. But it does at least open up another chamber, right? Of perspective. It's just how we choose to look at things, and it makes a lot of sense, right? So, um, I think there's some truth in there, even if it's not complete story. Um, but I just thought I'd share that with you guys. Have a great rest of your day and keep your mind open to other perspectives.